Did you know that there was a large-scale massacre against black soldiers here in the U.S. during World War II? In 1940, 8,000 construction workers built Camp Claiborne, a massive military complex in Louisiana. The camp was a boomtown, once home to 500,000 people. While the U.S. prepared men to fight abroad, for many black soldiers, the fight began at home. On January 10th, 1942, barely a month after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, black soldiers visited Alexandria, the closest city. Some 3,000 black Americans were enjoying Lee Street, named after Robert E. Lee, in an area dubbed Little Harlem. Chaos ensued when a white woman accused a black soldier of walking in front of her car. A white MP then fired at a black soldier. Many black soldiers started protesting because of this incident. Black soldiers were unarmed because they were not allowed to leave the camp with weapons. White soldiers and local police had an arsenal and began firing indiscriminately at black soldiers and civilians. They even deployed tear gas. Although black soldiers were the victims, military commanders blamed them and exonerated white officers. No one was ever arrested. Local newspapers praised the military. One newspaper claimed that no one died and highlighted that a white state trooper suffered a hand injury while attacking a black soldier. Although the military said no one was killed, multiple eyewitnesses confirm otherwise. The Afro-American, a black-owned newspaper, launched its own investigation and confirmed deaths that were corroborated by white officers. The entire area was quickly cordoned off, and Alexandria became off-limits to black soldiers. Lee Street and Little Harlem would never regain its former status. The history was kept alive by the Buffalo Soldiers Motorcycle Club, one of the largest black biker organizations in the country. They place a wreath every Memorial Day to honor the victims. And this history is still being unraveled. Dr. William Simpson, a local historian, received an extremely detailed anonymous letter with the location of a mass grave. Excavation of the site is now underway. The military has never acknowledged the massacre. Camp Claiborne was deserted in 1946, the Ritz Theater was demolished, and Lee Street remains neglected. There isn't even a Wikipedia page for this massacre. One survivor summed it up this way: whenever anybody says, remember Pearl Harbor, I will say, remember Lee Street.
Then what are you doing with that gun?
Well, what are you doing with yours?
Let me see that rifle, son.
No. This is my private property. According to California law, we got a constitutional right to bear arms.
What?
That's okay, move along. Go on about your business.
Wait, brothers and sisters, no. You ain't got to go nowhere. This is your business. Stay right here. The law says, as long as you stand a reasonable distance, that's 8 to 10 feet to be exact, you got a right to observe the police carrying out their duties. From what I can see, you're standing 22 feet away from this man. So, brothers, ain't no law being broken.
That's right. You stay right where you are. You ain't got to go nowhere.
Tip her protest. Learn about the Black Panther Party.
Is that gun loaded, boy?
Fish and game law clearly states it's unlawful to carry a live round of ammunition in the chamber of a shotgun or rifle in a vehicle. Pig.
Refer to him as officer. Then don't you refer to him as boy.
Well, is it loaded?
I tell you, officer, it wasn't, but now it is.
It's a badass nigga. Now, for the last time, boy, what do those guns mean?
They mean, pig, that the Black Panther Party declares you try to brutalize our community, you try to take our weapons. We'll shoot you, man.
Jesus, I think I done died and gone to heaven.
Do you know what convict leasing is? And if you said yes, what do you know about it? Do me a favor, put in the comments what you think it is, and give me a minute so I can explain to you what it is. Now, convict leasing is exactly what it sounds like, and even though the name has changed, it's still being utilized today. Large corporations that we know today, like fucking Walmart, Victoria's Secret, Ulta Beauty, all these different huge brands that we know, PlayStation, right? They use incarcerated people to produce these products so that they can make billions of dollars from it. Meanwhile, these incarcerated people make maybe $2 an hour, $3 an hour. Now, convict leasing started shortly after Emancipation Proclamation because, like the 13th Amendment says, slavery is illegal unless they were convicted of a crime. Which means anybody who has been convicted of a crime can be utilized as slaves by these private prisons. But at the time, it would be plantation owners. This was a way for the South to kind of say a big fuck you to the North for getting rid of their slaves. Okay, you made it kind of harder to get slaves, but it's easy to arrest them, and now they are criminals, and now I got my slaves back. This is also around the time we had black codes, black people getting arrested for something so small as loitering, littering, vagrancy, very small, minuscule offenses. I wouldn't. They're crimes, but offenses that would leave them in jail or in prison for decades, sometimes life. And this was simply because these plantation owners that just lost their slaves, they had to find a way and have a way to produce money. Like they had a way, they wasn't going to go out there and do the work themselves. Let's just say that. And these prisons figured, hey, okay, if you pay us a little bit of money, we'll go arrest this group of black boys for no fucking reason. And you can do what you want with them. Because the 13th Amendment permits it. Yep. I'm gonna be going a little further into this. I got a couple of videos I gotta upload on YouTube, but this is gonna be an entire series. If you haven't seen The 13th on Netflix, it is a documentary about the penal system, or the overall fucking penal system, and how the incarceration rates are directly tied to our political structure, right? And it trickles down into the black household, into our education. It's a beautiful documentary, but if you can't watch it, I'll kind of go briefly into it and kind of give you my own research that I've done as well on my YouTube. So tap the link tree in the bio. Make sure you subscribe. Also, I got a foundation in my bio. Donate. Share with other people, but donate if you can.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Breaking the Black Codes. Whether you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. As you can probably already tell, we got some special guests that'll be along. Sister Salita McCall will be here. Good friend in arms, brother Trevor Porter will be here. And we're just going to talk about town business. We're going to get a little housekeeping out the way first. Some of the housekeeping does include spamming the chat. Please do not spam the chat. So let's talk. So some general rules are we are community funded, which allows us to continually provide optimal information to the people and for the people. This show belongs to the Codebreaker community. Things you should know. The Codebreaker community is made up of interested parties that seek information and solution for issues that adversely affect the disenfranchised communities of color. Let's see, what do we provide? Good question. Solutions, implementations, methods, issues redress, and pertinent information as it pertains to the Black community at large. And how to help us continue breaking the code. Donations can be made on Cash App. Any amount helps the movement. And there is the Cash App. So then, folks, welcome to Breaking the Black Codes. This is the premiere episode, if you want to say that. Of course, you guys know we've been doing this for quite some time, and I know we wanted to take a different look at things from a different aspect. We've sent all the complaints up to different addresses. Now we talk about tactical planning and how to implement different things. We use history as a way to gauge what we should do next. And over time, generations and generations down the road, what ends up happening is we build up so much information and so much ability and so much skill where we should never have some issues ever again. However, if those issues do arise again, because of our learned abilities, we know how to overcome them a lot faster than we used to, which is invaluable. So what I want to say is thank you guys for again joining me. I expect as such because it's same host. If you guys love to send out complaints, you guys are going to really love this show because we're going to talk about some things that we can do. First order of business is to bring on our special guest. I think it's Miss McCall. You got me on speaker, and I can hear myself. Okay, I'll bring you on.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, but I can still hear me in the background.
Well, that's because I don't have no other choice. That's the only way I can do this.
Okay.
So let me turn it down some more.
Okay. So thank you guys for joining me, Mr. Porter, Miss Alita. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my premiere show. I'm a little nervous, but I believe that we're going to be able to do what we normally do. Uh, so yeah, we'll let you resolve that. Um, so Mr. Porter, I understand there was a city concert meeting, a city council meeting, city council meeting earlier this evening, and first of all, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always my pleasure.
Okay, and again, there's a city council meeting this evening. A lot of key elements that are laid out that we laid out over time. A lot of those key elements fell into place. But just the vibe of today. What was the vibe like in the room? Like, was the hoity-toity, boisterous mayor there?
The mayor was there, and I must say I was surprised. I expected a no-show, but he did the right thing, and he was in attendance. He did not run the meeting like he had in the past. He did not take over the meeting as he had done in the past. He was quiet. The only time he spoke was when Jules Green addressed a particular question about a budget supplement that the mayor had placed on the agenda, and that was the only time he spoke. He was flanked on the left and the right by the city attorney and his PR person, and they did not speak either. Neither did Trey Gist. So it was a very quiet meeting. There was
Somber almost.
Yeah, there was on their part. There was some. I would. It's hard to describe it. There was some enthusiasm in the city council chambers. The chambers was full. I think there were only 2 empty seats in there. So it was almost at its seating capacity. But it was a very guarded enthusiasm on the part of the crowd. So that was a very good showing. Cynthia Perry was elected as council president for the year 2025.
Well, congratulations, Miss Perry.
Yes, that she's the first Black woman to
Oh,
serve in that position.
history. We got
Yes.
history, folks. Black history. That's real Black history for those of you that's keeping score at home.
Right, exactly. It's not made up circus type.
Self-appointed.
Yeah, exactly. And Jules Green was voted in as vice president.
Congratulations to Brother Green for being vice president. That's excellent. That's a great start. That's a good start.
And I think you phrased it accurately. Today was a very good start for the first meeting of the year. So we got a good foundation to go forward from, to build upon, and that was good. Another thing that occurred today is that Malcolm Loverdane had nominated Cynthia Perry. She was voted on. It was unanimous, 7 votes. And then Malcolm Loverdane nominated Jules Green as vice president. Now, following that nomination, Chuck Fowler nominated Gary Johnson.
Why would he do that?
To drive a wedge between the Black elected officials.
Oh, wow.
So now you would be pitting Gary Johnson against Jules Green for vice president. And we already know that the 3 white council members were going to vote for Gary Johnson. So And if Gary Johnson had voted for himself, that would have given 4 votes and he would be the vice president.
Right.
Now, let's give credit to Gary Johnson. He did the magnanimous thing. He declined the nomination from Chuck Fowler.
Oh.
Yeah. And that really was the right thing to do. And that was the best thing to do for our city and especially for our community. So Gary Johnson did something very good. He did not allow Jock Roy and Chuck Fowler to drive a wedge between the black elected council members, and he held strong. He declined the nomination, and then he voted for Jules Green also.
That is wonderful.
And by the way, Jules Green received 7 votes also.
Oh, wow. So that was kind of like that little dig at the side, because all of a sudden, why wouldn't Fowler vote
against?
Yeah,
exactly.
That was one of his little last ditch efforts.
Yeah. And Gary Johnson thanked Chuck Fowler for having confidence in him and nominating him, but he respectfully declined the nomination. So we are off to a very good start. And what we're going to do is demonstrate to the entire city of Alexandria, the entire citizenry, that we can govern, and we can govern based on the issues and not on emotions, not on cultural type, divisive type things, but we're going to govern based on what is best for all of Alexandria. And what we have to start to recognize that in the past, it was always sold to us that what's best for District 5 is best for all of Alexandria. What's best for District 4 is best for all of Alexandria. Well, now it's going to be different. And Jules Green conveyed that in his talk, because he mentioned and he reminded people that he is the at-large council member. So his duty is to all of Alexandria, all 5 districts, not just 2 of the 5. And that's the big difference now in our city council, where before you had 2 councilmen at large who were also serving as council members for districts 4 and 5. So as a result, they got everything. They got the lion's share of the funding, of the services, of the attention, of everything. So now that balance of power has shifted, and we will start to see a more fair and equitable form of governance, one that works for all 5 districts, one that works for districts 1, 2, and 3, as well as districts 4 and 5. So today was a very good start. We're on the right track. We're on the correct path. We're headed in the right direction. So we just need to make sure we continue on that path and we continue that progress. So awesome. It's a good day.
Good day, good day. Miss McCall, I know you were there as well. You were live streaming, and okay, we got a comment. Miss Jeannie Moran says we now have a chance to be a better city. I'm sure that's what she was going to say.
Yes.
Miss McCall, you were there. What was your experience? I know you guys are kind of sitting adjacent to each other, but what was your experience? Did you share in that particular take on what Mr. Porter just shared?
I think she's still on mute. I see the line across her microphone.
Oh, she's still on mute. Oh, I see a little thing. I cannot. Will it let me unmute her? I can't unmute the guests because they chose to mute themselves. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Are she able to hear?
Okay.
Go ahead.
It was kind kind of somber in there, I guess. Everybody's just kind of, to me, I got the energy of it. I'm, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, she's got a bad delay. I can hear
No, I'm on mute now. I'm unmuted. Yeah, I'm able to hear you guys. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. So can you hear me?
it. I don't think she can hear me
Yeah.
as quick as. Oh, okay, there
Maybe
it
it's a
goes.
little lag.
Okay, there's a little lag. Go ahead.
Okay. 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 So I just wanted to say, okay, yeah, there is a delay. There is a big lag. I'm sorry. That's okay. So let me, because I need to turn this down. Give me a second, you guys. I don't know why it's giving me the blues. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I got like a little somber or anxiousness, a little bit of that type of energy I got in that from that room. Um, I think a lot of people were just ready for it to start. You know what I'm saying? This new thing to start, this new year to start. I am hoping that the things that were going on last year is not going to be going on this year. Okay. Um, in the sense when I say that I'm saying like what we went through last year, this should be it should never we it should have never taken place then, but it has. But I see that might be there is a slither of hope that things are going to be different. And one of the things that I definitely recognize, and I know Mr. Porter, you recognized it too, that they removed some people automatically and replaced two people from the Gator Board. They removed Greg Upton and Paula Katz off of the Gator Board, and they brought Mr. Williams and Mr. McGee. Mr. McGee was on the board before he was taken off, and Mr. Williams is new. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he took the place of I'm trying to figure out take the place of Miss Cheney, if I'm not mistaken, if that's correct, on the Gator board. So that right there is a dynamics that we're glad to see that change. Um, and I'm hoping more things change with the Gator board and let the Gator board do what it's supposed to do, on its own and not being under the umbrella of the city. It was working by itself prior to this, and I think it should get back to that specific duty that they had. Um, and it's amazing that the other organizations hadn't had to be under the thumb of the city, but that one in particular was, and it wasn't before. So yeah, I'm glad to see that. I'm just still curious about, and I'm hoping things change. I agree with you, Mr. Porter, on a lot of things, but we have to not be so. Uh, we can't forget that we are living in a racial issue in this area. Tavares just played a video of a young man explaining the Lee Street massacre. Um, I love history and I love our history. So that right there really makes me understand how we were treated and that the treatment is not gone anywhere. And hopefully that it will change. But I think what we're dealing with a city that's fighting itself and fighting its ghosts, okay? And with people coming on that's innovative and wanting to see things change, it's going to be a battle. I don't see it being a smooth sailing turnover to everybody believing that we all here together. I don't see that. It has never been that way. Um, but we need to forge forward. We need to continue doing what we're doing, and getting the word out and understanding that we're important too. Because I just don't see this kumbaya moment in Alexandria yet. I don't think Alexandria's ready for it yet. I think eventually it will, but I don't think the kumbaya is ready yet. Okay, um, and because of so much of it, if there was a time when we didn't, when we would have all been able to make different, this workout, well, it's going to take a little bit. When we talk about the gerrymandering, when we talk about the way Callis, which hopefully he'll be gone too on the Gator board, we look at all the different things, and you guys, we have talked a lot about how African Americans are treated in the city of Alexandria. I don't want us to get clouded with the kumbaya. It's still there, and we're going to have to continue to fight it. We're going to have to continue to fight it. And whoever knows me personally, I can't take what I believe and put it out on everybody else. But my belief is it's going to be a struggle. It's still going to be a struggle because a lot of people refuse to change. They don't want to change. But hopefully the amount of people who do the change, hopefully it'll be something good. But overall, we still got a battle, and I'm not ready to hold hands yet with nobody. I'm not, because it's too much work that has to be done, and I'm not ready for that. That's me, myself, not nobody else. This is not for anybody else's opinion. This is me. This is how I feel. I'm not ready to hold hands with anybody because they haven't earned that yet. Let me say that again. They have not earned that privilege to hold hands with me. I'll put it there like that. Okay? They haven't earned that. And us forgetting what they've done and the damage that has accumulated in the city of Alexandria, I'm not ready to hold hands and forgive and pray everybody forgiveness. I'm not. That's just me. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. I apologize for saying it, but I just need to get that off my chest. But go ahead. This is your show, Tavares. I'm not going to mess up your show. I just want to say that. I think we need to stay vigilant in this process, too.
I definitely do agree. I agree. And
let me. I saw a comment that was posted by Miss Virginia. Callis on the Gator board is appointed by Elizabeth Felter, so only she can replace him, and it does not appear she's willing to do that. Now, Callis was recently actually arrested, and this is what surprised me for driving under the influence. The thing is, I'm surprised that even made it as far as getting actual arrest. I thought sure they would have covered that up or let that slide, but he was actually arrested, and it's a matter of record. So you would think that something like that would lead a person to replace that individual, but he's still on the Gator board. But that's what I wanted to add. One other thing, I like the way you opened the show, and the young lady that was talking about slavery and in servitude. She mentioned the 13th Amendment documentary. That's an excellent documentary. I want to also refer people to two other documentaries. So this one, I don't know if you could see it, but this is something she was alluding to, and it's a documentary called Slavery by Another Name. Okay. And it's very good documentary. I suggest everybody view that. Now, there's another one, and it's called Slavery, the Making of America. This is also an excellent documentary. And both of those talk about how slavery has not gone away, that if you are convicted of a crime, you can be used as chattel slavery, uh, in servitude, indentured servitude. And you get very little, if any, compensance for it. And then one more thing is that uh, what the state of Louisiana did 2 years ago, we actually tried to remove that from our state constitution, the part about slavery, and it was overwhelmingly voted down not to remove it, to keep it in our constitution. That's such a backward step in this process, but that's the type of state we live in, and that's the type of parish we live in. So if you just think back just a couple of months ago with the propositions to build a larger capacity incarceration center for juveniles, once again, you look at our laws. If you're convicted of a felony, you can be used as chattel slavery. So it's expanding in Louisiana rather than contracting. And they won't even take the language out of our Constitution. So that's the state we live in, and that's the parish we live in. So we need to be aware of that and be prepared to resist that every time it comes up on the ballot. Now, it passed last time, but next time we got, as they will try to expand it further, we need to come together, coalesce as a unit, and vote those things down.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, Mr. Porter. Remember, they changed the wording. The wording is what got everybody confused, and they purposely did it the first time, and they turned around when they brought it back up again. They did it again, and people wound up voting for it that didn't want to vote for it. But the wording, that's why it's so important to be able to comprehend and read,
Right.
because that's how they got it the last time, was the wording. The wording was to the point where it made it seem like they were allowing you to say no, but people wound up voting yes, and they were shocked that they had voted yes for something that they really wanted to vote no for. So that's how it got passed the last time. That part of the Constitution, that piece in the Constitution about slavery, was the wording, and everybody was saying that it was the wording that messed them up. But again, like I said,
Like it was a code that you needed to break.
almost, yeah, like a code you had to break in order to understand it before you voted on it. And
Right.
that's how it got through the last time, was because of the way they worded. Whatever lawyer or attorney who wrote it up, he was very good at making sure that it made it sound like as though the people should vote for it, and that's what they did. And that's why Louisiana is where it's at. Now, there is a big problem in Louisiana right now, and I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. There is a large exodus right now going on in Louisiana. People are leaving the state, and they don't know what to do about it. So people are kind of tired of the way, things are going here. Um, I don't know if it's just the government or the way things are being ran, but they're at the point where they're tired, and they're moving out, and they're going to higher pasture, greener pastures, as they say. You look at our economy, you look at our education, you look at our safety. You know, it's amazing. Today, when at the city council meeting, and everybody was, uplifting the police and everything, and all I could think of is Robert Greene, the ideal that the police officer that killed Robert Greene in Monroe got off. I think about those type of things when we holler about um, going for supporting the police. I have issues with that,
One
because
of
we've lost so many people behind quote unquote supporting the police.
one
Because
of
police, go ahead,
so
go ahead.
yeah, one of the officers that was involved in the Ronald Green murder is your Alexandria Police Department chief. So
he was there during that time. Yeah.
No, he was a part of the case.
Okay. But yeah, you're right. You're right. So when you look at that, I'm not saying you can't, because I think most of us probably do have um, uh, police somewhere in our family tree somewhere.
Sure, right.
But the ideal that we keep allowing these bad police officers to be in these positions of power, and to be able to do what they've done. But it's slowly but surely around the country, because I pay attention to all different states. It's starting to break down little by little. It's being chipped away. Police officers are actually getting convicted of the crimes that they're committing toward us African Americans and black and brown people. The killing of us, the because some of them was raping, molestation, sodomy, all this that was going on. Slowly but surely they're being held accountable. Sometimes it's too late, but at least they're getting it done now, and it needs to continue. And what we have to look at is we don't have to be afraid. If we would understand, I was talking today at the city council meeting, and I was telling somebody, there's no need for us to be afraid. We don't have a reason to be afraid. We really don't, because the power is in our hands. The power is in our hands, our heart, and our minds, and we just got to realize that. And when we realize that, we can conquer anything. We proved that to you guys with this election. What did we do on this election that just took place? We got rid of the people who were not doing what they were supposed to do. That's what it takes. That's all it takes. Is putting your mind, working together, and making it happen. Continue working in that type of mindset, and every time you turn around, we'll be winning. But we have to do that. Okay? We can't expect for everybody to come in and rescue us. We have to be able to do the rescuing ourselves. The ideal of now with the warming centers, I was going to make a big thing about the ideal that we waited too late for the warming centers. Okay? The churches should have been the first person who came out and said something. It shouldn't have been nobody else. It should have been the churches come out and speak about opening up their life centers and their gyms for warming centers for the homeless during this cold weather. Nobody shouldn't have had to ask them to do it. It should have been something automatic. These churches are for service, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. It's to serve the people, the communities, right? So it shouldn't have been no hesitation of having a church open. It shouldn't have been a hesitation of vans going out and picking people up and bringing them to the churches. That should have been no hesitation at all. Shouldn't have been nobody sitting down having meetings. The pastor should have got together with his deacons and told them what we need to do, point blank. That's just my opinion. I'm just saying that on the sense of the power is in our hands.
All right. I agree with you. A lot of times people feel disenfranchised by the system that they're trying to they feel disenfranchised by the very system that is supposed to empower them. And that over time becomes like a snowball effect of people that just don't want to be involved. And that's why I spoke earlier about the disenfranchised. So I have a video here. And this video here is about what we would call the Southern strategy. And a lot of people don't know about the Southern strategy. But the Southern strategy is as follows.
Democrats are the party of slavery is a sentence that's both factually accurate and completely misleading. It's accurate because, yes, Democrats supported slavery in the 19th century, and yes, Lincoln was the first Republican president. But it's misleading because our two major political parties have changed drastically in the last 150 years. Because here's another completely factual statement. A Democratic president signed the Civil Rights Act 100 years later. A Democrat signing the Civil Rights Act was a huge moment in shaping our modern political parties because it shifted how the two sides would approach issues of race and equality equality to this very day. And my part of the country played a huge role in that realignment. See, white Southern Democrats weren't in love with the more progressive members of the party handing out all this equality to black folks, so they started to leave the party. And when they did, Republicans were waiting. But you might still be wondering why all this happened. Why did the Democrats suddenly care about black voters? Why did the Republicans, who had previously been the party of civil rights, decide to embrace all these racist campaign tactics? To explain that, I'll have to give you some history. First, I'll say something obvious. Things were different in the 1800s. Cars weren't invented yet, people hunted with muskets, and Larry King was still on his first marriage. The University of Tennessee wasn't even losing embarrassingly at football yet. So, like I said, things were very different, and that includes our political parties.
Democrats were associated with essentially the party of white supremacy in the South, whereas Republicans were the party of business, of small town America in the North.
So yes, the dominant political party in the South in the 1800s was the Democrats, and the Republicans were formed to oppose slavery. So what's changed since the 1860s, other than we fought a civil war, ended slavery, and invented spaceships and hubba bubba? Well, it's not like there's one single moment where the Democrats hiked the racism football to the Republicans, but there are a series of key turning points. Like in 1948, when Democratic President Harry Truman signed an executive order outlawing segregation in the military. This did not sit well with Southern Democrats, especially a governor turned senator turned ghoulish skeleton from South Carolina named Strom Thurmond. Old Strom was the epitome of a Southern Democrat, which meant he was a committed segregationist. Strom was so upset about Truman's armed forces integration efforts, he left the Democratic Party and launched a presidential campaign to defeat Truman on a states' rights platform. He called the new party the Dixiecrats. There's that Southern connection right in the name. He lost, of course, as Southerners who secede while claiming their states' rights were under attack often do. Despite the Strom and Drang, Democrats with national political ambitions would continue to advocate for civil rights. Whether this was the result of purely cynical political maneuvering or genuine sympathy for the cause is up for debate.
LBJ was a strong opponent of civil rights. He blocked about every civil rights measure. But in the mid-1950s, he realizes that he's going to have to change his stance on civil rights if he's going to go anywhere. He helps move the 1957 Civil Rights Act through Congress. He helps get it passed. So he'd come around to support civil rights, but really for cynical reasons.
The Civil Rights Act and integration caused a huge backlash in the South among socially conservative voters. In response to this exodus of white Southern Democrats, Republican politicians developed what's now known as the Southern Strategy. I'll let an expert explain.
The key person here is Barry Goldwater, who's a senator from Arizona. In 1961, Barry Goldwater goes down to Atlanta to speak to a gathering of Southern governors and says, we're not going to win the black vote in 1964 and 1968, so we ought to stop chasing it. Instead, we need to go after white Southern conservatives, and that's a vote we can win. So the idea here is to just go all in on the Southern white vote.
In 1981, Republican political consultant Lee Atwater was caught on tape laying out how Republicans would appeal to white Southern Democrats' prejudices without saying anything too explicitly racist. Just listen how casually this strategy rolls off his tongue.
You start out in 1954 by saying by 1968, you can't say that hurts your backfire, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. The byproduct is blacks get hurt worse than whites.
LBJ was aware of what Republicans were doing, by the way. There's a quote from him that frames this hustle perfectly. If you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you.
It seems like it would make the most sense to align with people that are in your same socioeconomic group. But, why do that when there's an easily identifiable way to make yourself seem better than someone?
Say there's three guys hanging out, like a white dude, black dude, and a rich dude, and there's like 10 cookies. The rich dude takes 9 cookies and turns to the white dude and is like, that black dude's trying to take your cookie.
Yep. Yeah. So yes, Southern Democrats were enthusiastically for slavery in the 1850s, almost as enthusiastically as Republicans turned against integration in the 1960s and 70s. Yeah, parties are like people, they change.
When I was 18, I thought Korn was the new Led Zeppelin. That barely tells you anything about me in 2020. It definitely doesn't tell you anything about what my grandchildren think about Korn.
The lesson should be to continually question who's on the right side of history now so we can figure it out and join them.
That being said, folks, I hope that explained a little bit about what we're dealing with here. As a result, the Southern strategy did work. That
Are you
event?
still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Well, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So, that was examples of. So I was naming an example of a time where a once Democrat person turned into a Republican. So Harry Silver used to be on the city council before he met his maker. During that time, he was a Democrat in the beginning. Something happened that made him change parties to Republican. He's not the only one. The something that happened was the election of Barack Obama. From that point forward, Harry Silver no longer wanted to be associated with the Democratic Party. What does that say about the local Democrats? Well, let's take a step further. Mayor Jock Roy, perfect example. Used to be a Republican, wanted to become mayor. Remember what they said? I'm not going to get elected saying the N word repeatedly. I'm not going to get elected. I'm not going to have the black vote. So I should just chase the white vote, which is exactly what he did. This past election, your mayor locally adopted the Southern strategy. He catered to what did he say? The business community of Sinlaw. The business community of Sinlaw is largely populated by white folks. So that's what he did. He adopted the Southern strategy. If Jock Roy needed to change his party back to Republican to get those votes, I guarantee you he would have done it. Let's take it a step further. People like, let's see, your sheriff, Mark Wood, used to be a Republican, wanted to become sheriff. Now he's a Democrat. You won't find that type of flip-floppery in the black community. You won't find that. You won't. Only person that I know that has done it on record and on a ballot is David Williams, who said he was running no party while running for judge, but on election day he switched his party to Republican, which again, what was the fan base that he was aligning himself with? The Republican Party. So this whole flip-flopping parties thing, it makes it hard on the people that are actually dedicated to the cause, whether it be Democrat or Republican. It makes it easy for the Republicans because they're all about domination, but it makes it harder on the black population because we have all these people that are bombarding the wavelength that we exist on, and they're pretending. Jock Roy knew in order to win that election, to get the majority vote, he had to be a Democrat. Just like with Mark Wood. The people outside of Alexandria knows Mark Wood is not a Democrat. They know that the people outside of Alexandria and Rapides Parish knows that Mark Wood is not a Democrat. The people inside Alexandria, the predominantly black area, those are the votes he needed. So he switched parties. And that ineffectually is a big part of breaking the code. The black codes existed to further subjugate freed people. They freed you on one end, and then they found a way to put you back in prison on the other end. They found a way to violate you on the other end. So all these things working together are definitely indicative of targeted oppression, which is something I spoke about in my address to the state legislature during the redistricting period. I was talking about concerted oppression, targeted oppression, and voter suppression. When you have a candidate that is constantly going back and forth between parties, they're trying to usurp or override, and everybody's free to change parties anytime you want to. Far be it for me to be the advisor on any party, an independent voter. But my associations, my closer associations are with those of the Democratic Party. And that's not by accident. That's literally because a lot of the foundational evidence that has been proven over time has come from the Democratic side, not the Dixiecrat side. Because now what they're doing is they're implementing themselves and they're pretending like that we do not mention Maddox Washington, right? Although he had Democrat on his ballot, or he was running as a Democrat, his close alliances were with Republicans. His closest alliances were with Republicans. Matter of fact, I dare say majority of his alliances were with the Republican Party. So, he was just one switch away from being a Republican. He was a Republican, maybe not on paper, but he was a Democrat only on paper. So I want to open up the conversation one more time. Mr. Porter, that video was accurate in its description of what the Southern strategy was. That was the best, quickest version I could find. But hopefully, was that an ample explanation?
It was really good. As a matter of fact, all of the videos you selected, you did a real good job in picking ones that were very pertinent to the topics. A couple of things I can add that were not in the video is that Richard Nixon ran off of that exact same strategy. As a matter of fact, Richard Nixon contacted the southern states' political leaders to let them know if they voted for him. Now, Richard Nixon was Republican, okay? And the South was Democratic. But he let the Democratic political leaders know, if you vote for me, I will roll back civil rights. I will prevent this, encroachment of the blacks into the civil rights arena. And so he won. He won the election. The South voted for him. Now, Richard Nixon was vice president to Dwight Eisenhower. Now, again, they're Republicans, but what Dwight Eisenhower did, he was the president who sent the National Guard in for the Little Rock students that went to school, when they integrated the high school there. It was him who upheld that and protected their rights to go to a white school. So things in that video are absolutely correct. Everything flip-flopped. And I know from my father and my uncle, the entire reason that they switched from Republican to Democrat was when Barry Goldwater came on the scene and was stating, we're not going to do anything to help blacks, and I'm just going to cater to the whites. And that was when they said, okay, this is not the party for us. And that's when they left the Republican Party. Because another thing that a lot of folks didn't know, or may not know, I shouldn't say didn't know, is that prior to civil rights, the Democrats were not allowing black people to be part of their party. You could not be a Democrat. And that was especially true in Louisiana. They simply were not accepting black people as Democrats. That's why so many of the blacks during Reconstruction were Republicans, including my family. And it wasn't until Barry Goldwater came onto the scene in 1960, and he was very anti-black and getting a lot of support. That's when my family left the Republican Party and became Democrats in 1960. So, and then just one other tangent item. Philip Terrell was also a person that was Republican, ran as Democrat, and then switched back to Republican. Mark Wood has switched back to Republican. You mentioned others, but they play that game. So from now on, I think we need to pretty much be leery of any political affiliation and look at what they represent and start classifying candidates as either liberal or conservative. So they could be a Democrat, but they are touting a totally conservative agenda, which is what the Republicans typically do. So we have to be careful of that. And there are virtually no Republicans that I know of that tout a liberal agenda. So it seems like this disparity is only on one side. So where you can get fooled by someone masquerading as a Democrat, but having a totally conservative agenda, which means they are 100% aligned with the Republicans. You don't usually see that on the Republican side. You don't see a person masquerading as a Republican with a liberal agenda. It just seems to be on one side.
You know, that's
But
so true.
good videos, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Porter, that was right on time with that. You're right, and we need to pay attention. I was thinking the same thing you actually said about the idea we need to pay attention to the way they vote and their actions and not their party's affiliation. Because, and Tavar said earlier, how when you're a diehard Democrat and you put in the work and you do all that and you find out that this person that claims to be a Democrat is working off of a Republican agenda, it does do something to you. It almost kind of discourages you. So we need to pay more attention to the work that they do, their actions, opposed to the party affiliation, because now we see that doesn't matter anymore. For them, not for us, but to them, that it doesn't matter anymore, because they can play between, the two parties, and just watch how they do things, watch how they move, in other words, and what they vote on, and the things that they follow, or the things that they're diehard about or passionate about. Start watching those things, and that can make you to make the determination whether or not that's the person you want to put your vote toward. That is a great idea, that you were saying, and I totally agree with that. Yes, it's very much well pay attention to their actions.
And something you see that you need to everyone need to pay attention to. You see folks switch when they do switch a party. They're typically switching from Democrat to Republican. But when the Republican persons switch, they don't switch to Democrat, they switch to independent. And so folks really should pay real close attention to that. That's what happens. A person gets fed up with Democrat, they switch to Republican. A Republican get fed up with Republicans, they switch to independent. They don't go all the way over to Democrat. And a lot of that is exactly what Tavares touched on. When Barack Obama got nominated as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, we had a lot of Democrats leave the Democratic Party. Most of them were white. And then when Barack Obama was elected as president, you had more Democrats leave and switch parties. In Louisiana, we had the majority in the Senate with Democrats. They switched parties and gave the Republicans the majority in the Senate, in the Louisiana Senate. And that was all because Barack Obama was elected as president. So we're living in a very racially biased state, and Rapides Parish is a microcosm of the state. It's equally as racially biased. And when you have candidates who play upon us by changing their party affiliation to Democrat and then changing back to Republican, such as Mark Wood did, Philip Terrell did, several others. And then you have some that flirt between independent and Republican, but don't come all the way over to Democrat, like David Williams and as you mentioned, Lee Rubin did that as well. So we just have to be very cognizant of the games that they'll try and play to win over our vote. We have to be much more selective with on who we vote for.
Oh, and I thank you both for that wonderful explanation. To further the conversation about how they'll switch to independent, conservatives will switch to being independent as opposed to conservatives switching over to being a Democrat, or Republicans switching over to being a Democrat. That typically doesn't happen. And when it does, it's for a very high stakes position like district attorney,
right,
or sheriff.
Right. That's right.
Or judge.
Right.
And I wouldn't necessarily see the need for it on a council level, but we do have various council candidates that were being funded by the Republican Party, and we still experience that. That's why this show is about breaking the code. We have to be able to see what's happening and know how to move around what's taking place. So, and I'm not going to harp on this as an example, but you have people like you have former council person who just left office, Lee Rubin. We'll use him as an example. He openly switched parties, right? He went from Republican to independent with the hopes that he would be able to gain, he would not lose his Republican friends, and he would be able to gain, because he was an at-large position, he needed the black vote. So instead of being an all-out Republican, he became an independent, where he could keep his Republican friends and hopefully make enough Democrat friends to get him in. Because, again, Alexandria is majority black, and you're not going to get far without the black vote. Same thing with what's the young lady name that ran? And the other large position.
Tracy Snow.
Tracy Snow, also an independent, shopped heavily in the black community. And these aren't accidents. These are strategies to win. And everybody has a strategy to win, right? And hopefully, whomever you're following. Hopefully, their strategy is just to tell you the truth, whatever the situation may be, whatever the obstacle may be. Have someone that if you're going to give them your vote, have someone that will be able to explain to you what the obstacle is. That's important because if they can explain to you what the obstacle is, that means they have a good grasp on the problem. When you have people, say for instance, like Reddix Washington, prime example. Reddix Washington wanted to run for District 26, which is a majority black. It's a majority black state district, currently occupied by Brother Ed Laverdang. He wanted to get in that position, but here's the thing: majority of his funding came from white Republicans. For that campaign, majority of his funding came from the Republican Party. Same thing goes as far as people like the former candidate for police juror, Clarence Reed, and another former candidate of this past race, Stephen Shark. A lot of these people are aligned heavily, very closely with the Republican Party. Incidentally, or coincidentally, as it were, Stephen Shark is occupying a spot on what they would call the Democratic Party Executive Committee while maintaining his close alliances and allegiances with his Republican Party Executive Committee cohorts, which they're supposed to not even stand for the same thing. But apparently there is some common ground there on those two polar opposite sides. What that common ground is, I don't know. I don't know because given current history, people on that side of the aisle typically have ignored the communities of color around Sinlaw. A lot of people have ignored even people that are skin folk, because they say all skin folk ain't kin folk. Some of our skin folk have helped them mainline our communities. All right, so a part of breaking the code is being able to recognize when when we're being manipulated. So a part of that manipulation includes currying your favor or playing kind to you for in exchange. Is everything's transactional, which I don't. That's another thing that's not inherent to the black community. We typically do things on a non-transactional basis. If I do something for you as a part of your community, I'm not expecting anything in return. However, whenever we get involved with these people that are on this transactional basis, where if I do this, you'll do this, for me, if I do this for you, you'll do this for me, instead of just when I do this for the community, we'll all win. We're really, really coming out of that phase of having those type of people represent us. Towards the end of his tenure on the council, we had certain members of the city council that was just going all out. They were pretending like they were giving so much to the community. They were providing all these various opportunities, and little did we know that those opportunities would have existed whether they were there or not. So it was a part of the bamboozling, if you will. Let's go ahead to the comment section. Does that mean we as voters need to be aware of candidates' track records and their ability to represent well? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So would Shark's antics be considered as collaboration of conflict of interest? Let me put a pin in that. Miss McCall, if you're available, hold on one second.
Okay, now what you say? I'm sorry.
Would you be available to elaborate on what they would call antics by the chairman of the DPEC? Is asking, would those antics be considered collaborations of conflict of interest?
Yeah, yes, you can, especially with Stephen Sharp. Um, the dangerous part of African Americans when we're in this political realm is playing both sides, pretending that you're really for the people when it really isn't about that. It's more about what they can get out of it. A lot of people who have not been able to be in the public's eye a lot, and that's something that they crave, they will do anything. And they don't see it as conflict of interest. You have to understand when they're doing it, they don't see it as conflict of interest. It has to be pointed out to them. You see what I'm saying? So they don't see what they're doing is damaging their community. They're seeing is them making either getting a payoff, or they're showing their clout, in other words, on what they're doing. Um, and it hurts the community, and they don't see it like that, because it's not about the community. You have to be able to make sure you're paying attention to see if they're true um, intentions are about making the community a better place, or is this about something personal? Um, when you watch Stephen Sharp, when he's so-called Uncle Willie, watch who he serves. Okay, we do know that the Republican Party, the DPEC, the RPEC, helps the DPEC, because the DPEC never has the funding, or it's been said that they never had the funding to do what they're supposed to be doing, so they get money from the RPEC in order for it to help them. Um, you made that comment earlier about how everything is being done where they're pretending to be about um, the Democratic Party when they're really not. And it's sad that we're like that. And I believe this: if you're a black Republican, be that black Republican. Don't come over on the Democratic side and pretend like you're for us when you're not. So if you're a Republican, hang out with the Republicans, and we shouldn't get upset with them if they do. Because sometimes I guess we're hurt because we have this mindset that all blacks are supposed to be Democratic. So when we have that mindset, when we see a black Republican, the ones who actually want to stand up and say I'm a black Republican, which we know we have some who won't do that, um, we get offended. Okay, so they pretend like they are on the Democratic side, so
So
that they
are
won't
you
feel
suggesting
shut
that
out.
they do that as a protection measure?
They do that as a protection measure, and they do that as a shield, a protector for themselves too, not only just for the party, but for themselves, because they want to blend in. They want to stand on both sides of the street. They want to stand on the Democratic side, and they want to stand on the Republican side. And majority of the time, what I've noticed with black Republicans who don't want to admit that they're black Republicans, they're hide behind the Democrats. They'll do the things for the white Republicans. They'll get paid. They'll advertise and whatever it is that they do. They won't outright say that I'm a Republican. I'm going to pretend. I'm going to play the role, but they don't need to know that. And again, like you said earlier, Mr. Porter, it's disheartening when people don't just be your. What is so hard about just being yourself? And quit. And the thing, what happens is, because we're so concerned about what other people think of us, it's hard for us to be ourselves. You see what I'm saying? And we're labeled, by the public or the community because of a certain way that we're acting when it comes to the political realm, instead of just being yourself. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm independent. And I'm going to stay that way. I don't have to act any other way. But some people don't understand that. They don't understand the concept of being Democratic and being Republican. They don't understand that it really isn't a difference, to be honest with you guys, because they're the wings of the same eagle, quote unquote eagle. You have the right, what they call a right wing and left wing. It's from the same bird. So there's going to be some things in the in the Republican side and the Democrat side that's really similar. No matter how much we want to say they're different, they're really not. The concepts are different, but they're really not, because they come from the same bird. And someone just put up saying follow the money. You're right. You follow the money and you see who's who. with that money?
There's
Who's
a lot
getting the
of
money?
instances where you'll learn that a lot of the business owners are Republicans. A lot of the people that are on the have side of the have and have nots, they are quote unquote Republicans, and a lot of people, we see political affiliation as a means of expressing the needs of our community. They see political affiliation as means to money. There aren't a lot of, at least I can speak for Louisiana, there aren't a lot of business owners that are Democrat. And is that a problem? Yes. I would.
You're going in and out.
Once.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, you're going in and out.
Oh, okay. So one side of that scale is purely Republican, right? So we have a bunch of Republican business owners. Whereas they're like, whenever they're wanting to put together their money and do something with their money, does that serve the entire city, or does that just serve the people that are hovering and Republican adjacent, like some of our people that switch sides, right? Because being what I call a Republican or a Demopublican, being able to play both sides means that you can garner benefits from both parties. And typically when people are looking for that type of benefit, what they're looking for is favoritism. And that favoritism that's a personal embellishment as opposed to something that, like when people say your favorite this, your favorite that, you're looking for preferential treatment as opposed to being treated like someone that is not only a part of community, but someone who is serving community. You don't need a favorite when you're serving. There's no need to be favorites when you're serving. We're all collectively serving. So you're trying to be the best server outright or out loud. There's no need for that. That is the total opposite of a humble servant. You're more of an obnoxious servant, but you're really only obnoxiously self-serving because you seek validation as a favorite as opposed to just being in service of. So that's another one of those black codes. So whenever someone is seeking approval from everyone, or there's a saying, a friend to everyone is a friend to no one. And sometimes at some point it's going to reach that pitch where you're going to have to do either what's best for another community, or you're going to have to do what's best for your community. And if there's any point where you choose another community over your community, you've officially you're on the other side. It should always be your community first, no matter what community it is, because clearly that line of logic works. The Republicans do it all the time. It obviously works. It's why they do it. So that's just some black code for you. If you don't pick up what we're laying down, let me explain it like this. If at any time you choose to do something in favor of another community at the cost of your community, then you're no longer a qualified servant of your community. Being a servant of your community, you would never put your community in jeopardy. Under no circumstances. There is no way that you would have anything be removed from your community or taken away from your community. So at that point, you are now an unqualified servant. That's plain and simple. I've watched Mr. Porter serve. He's never compromised for his community. Now, one time did I see him allow them to take something from out of his community to give to a community that already has. So I look at that as kind of like a blueprint. Now, one time that compromises do have to be made over time, yes. But as it were, a lot of our communities are in no position to compromise. Point blank, period. We have nothing to compromise with anymore. We don't have schools to compromise with, but your schools are compromised. We don't have an infrastructure to compromise with where we can give something in exchange for something because our communities don't have, they've stripped the value out of them all the way down to the morale of our communities. And that's a concerted effort because, again, the people that are supposed to be doing things in our favor as a community aren't. And please believe, I'm having this conversation with the Black community. They are definitely having this conversation in the white community. Or they may even be past this conversation in the white community because it's not even a question. And maybe that's the point of what I'm getting to. In their community, what we're talking about isn't even up for debate. Of course, it's us first. Of course, we want a $7-11 million improvement for a baseball field, or not even a baseball field, a softball field for little kids that are our little kids, and we're going to place this amount of money out of the reach of people in Black communities. We're going to place the value of this thing that we're investing in. We're going to place the value outside of the reach of those people. So what if they're placed within your reach? What is your local government placed within the reach of the Black community where you live? And I'm only just relating to Alexandria because I know so much. But this is a nationwide thing. What has your government invested into your community lately? Because I guarantee you there's an around-the-clock strategy session about what they can do next in their community. Mr. Porter, I believe you can attest to that.
I have a question for Mr. Porter.
Go ahead.
Mr. Porter, Tavares said something to me that kind of made me think. So he said they're having these conversations in their communities, right?
Yes.
What is our strategy to have these conversations in our community?
Right now, we don't have a strategy, but what we are formulating at this point is to have town hall meetings on a regularly scheduled frequency, whether it's every 2 months or every 3 months, and have it so that members of districts 1, 2, and 3 can attend. Of course, it's open to anyone in the city, but it's really focused on the areas of the city that have been neglected, the areas of the city that have the flooding problems, they have the infrastructure problems, they have the street problems, they have the crime problems. It's really focused there. And so if we could do that with the new elected council and do that on a basis of every 3 months or every 4 months, to where we're having meetings like that 4 times a year, 3 times a year, where folks can come together and talk with their council members. Actually, the way I would love to see it take place is that our citizens could be there, and each time we meet, there will be maybe 3 topics that will be discussed. And let's say if it's crime, if it's infrastructure like brown water pipes, and if it's streets, potholes, sunken streets, things like that. Okay. And at these town hall meetings, the format would be we introduce one topic and let the 4 council members and even the police juror members for those same areas have a conversation in front of all of us citizens about that. And they're just having a conversation back and forth. I think we can do this. Or what if we did this? That sort of stuff. And we just sit there and listen to them talk about this, how they can bring about and develop a policy to address that issue. And then we move on to the next topic and let them do that also, move on to the next topic. And then at the end of all of that, that's where the citizens can engage the elected officials. But I think what would be really helpful and something different, instead of a panel and someone asking questions and they're responding, what if they talk among themselves? Because they would be the ones actually formulating this policy and coming to a point that they got a policy they can all agree on, or something that they feel good about, or something that they recognize will actually solve the issue. And so that's one thing I will be proposing to our newly elected officials, and see if they are in tune to wanting to participate in that. That's what I would suggest as a strategy in lieu of us having no strategy at all, you know. So let me deviate just for a minute. And you were talking about black codes. And here's something we need to be aware of as far as some of the black codes that are occurring right now. So as soon as Donald Trump won, he started signaling to his conservative base that he was going to eliminate all of this diversity and equity inclusion programs. Well, he's not even in office yet. And just on the strength of him coming out publicly and condemning diversity, equity, inclusion type programs, you had a lot of corporations, a lot of businesses jump on that bandwagon almost immediately. Walmart saying, yeah, we're going to eliminate our office of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then you had other companies, major companies, coming forward and doing the same thing. And then as soon as the new Congress took office in just last week or a couple of weeks ago, the first thing they did, Mike Alexander, who is Speaker of the House, he's from Louisiana, they eliminated their office of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, this is something we all used to know as affirmative action, you know, and so they changed the name, but that's where we're going. So as minorities, as persons of color, people of color, we need to be accustomed to the codes and how those codes affect us. So now in a white community, they have signaled it is okay to not have any diversity, any equity, any inclusion of minority groups into your workforce or into the clients that you serve or things like that. So once again, we're going to find ourselves on the outside looking in. And that's what we can expect for the next 4 years. So we need to get prepared for that. And as Mrs. McCall said, we need to have a strategy for it. So if we don't have a strategy for that, we need to get busy to work on one and develop one.
That would be our best step forward. Again, like I said, this is about breaking the code. We have to figure out how to get away from the mindset of doom and gloom, this purveying mindset of disenfranchisement, disillusionment with the very system that doesn't operate without us. And I kind of want to put a pin on that because again, without us, this system does not exist.
Without, let me thank Miss Battles. She caught an error. It's Mike Johnson. I think I said Mike Alexander. He's actually Speaker of the House, Louisiana House of Representatives.
Okay.
And he's right from the Pineville area.
Oh,
Mike
okay.
Johnson is the one from the Shreveport area who is Speaker of the House in the federal government. So thank you, Ms. Battles.
Thank you, Ms. Battles.
I got my mics confused.
I do it all the time. Again, folks, what episode 1, town business, we are establishing what we should expect of each other more so than what we should expect from people that we voted for. Those are individuals, but those individuals can only thrive in an environment where the community that they're serving works together. And I'm not talking about together we will. I'm talking about this together of like-minded individuals who are against the disenfranchisement. Again, there goes that word again. The non-services that are they're not non-existent in our communities. And those are the only people that we can align ourselves with. We cannot afford to align ourselves with any other types of people. We cannot support anyone that supports another community before our own. We cannot be a part of our own demise unless that is what you're looking for. You're looking for your own self-destruction, then by all means, support someone that does not and is not involved in your community. Support someone that has switched parties like it's rooms in a house party or something like that. We don't need that kind of inconsistency. And again, we're at a very, very pivotal moment where we either we're gonna make it or we're gonna break it, folks. And that's where we're gonna break here and the code breakers. And again, I'm gonna go over the house rules one more time before we go, but I do want to take a minute to give you guys a little bit more information. Check this out.
Okay, so I've told you guys before that my grandma was a Black Panther, and she's also an activist and an artist. And her claim to fame was that she protested the Kansas government and stopped them from making Quindaro a landfill, and it's now a historical site. Here's a documentary with her and my great-grandma from 1994. I hope you enjoy.
You'll have to walk down through those woods, along those trails. You listen to that water. You can see the water coming out of the ground, out of the rocks, and you use your imagination. It makes me feel like a full person. That I feel that the good Lord has put all of these things here for us to enjoy, and why not?
That's my great grandma.
Instead of destroying everything, get out there and live and see what's going on. This is the only way we're going to survive. We have to get back to Mother Earth. I know the value of the land. I know what the land produces. And if more people would spend a fourth of their time in the woods learning these different things, then they'd have a whole new outlook. But they don't want to avail themselves to do this. I don't know why.
Keep in mind, we're at Kansas, the border of Kansas, where John Brown was just a few miles from here. Lawrence, Kansas, that was burned before the Civil War, is just a few miles from here. This place, Quindaro, was kind of a meeting ground for all these people. The abolitionists, it was an abolitionist town. They want to deny that.
Nedra Bonds herself.
The older citizens are gone. They're all dead. And the younger ones have moved away. So consequently, they just think, well, this is just wasted area out here, so put a dump out there. But they still don't realize the roots are roots out here. Guess they don't care. These are our roots out here. We can identify with Western University. The hospital, first black hospital in Wyandotte County, Douglas Hospital. Primrose Villa, the nursing home, it's gone. BBK, Bryant Butler Kitchen, nursing home, it's gone. The building is still there, but I guess it's deteriorating or something. But the whole thing, the people are gone. There are few still here. Our new school up here on the corner, Quindaro School. We have about close to 500 children in that school. And this is what we tried to tell the city council and the board. We have this new school here, over 500 children. And the trucks are going to pass there. That's the only way they can get over there to the ruins with a landfill. It's ridiculous.
And now they want to make this proud site in the history of Kansas into an international dump and further persecute people who have already been very much abused by society, which really has established a procedure of having throwaway people.
So
Wait a minute, Tavares.
for context, hold on. Yeah, we used to live in Wyandotte.
County. Yeah.
We used to live in Wyandotte. So again, there is a concerted effort nationwide. That's why I tried not to make this show so much about Alexandria, but about nationwide. They are trying to turn our communities either into a dump site, thanks to companies like Royal Martin. They're trying to disenfranchise our communities to the point where we leave, remove resources to the point of where there are no resources, there are no people. You can't name me one place that has no resources whatsoever, where the people are just thriving. Nobody can thrive without resources, even natural. You have brown water. Look at Flint, Michigan. You have water that is not suitable, so you can't even farm if you want to. You can't farm because the land is not suitable because of the chemicals from Royal Martin. So there's nothing, you can't take care of yourself. And so we'll turn your area into a grocery desert. You can't grow your own vegetables, not healthily at least. You can't support your own ecosystem. You can't sustain anything without you could sustain without the local government so much being involved. However, through the local government's involvement, they have allowed for companies and business to come into your community to poison your community. That's why we have Cancer Alley. That's why we have heroes like Miss McCall and Miss Agnes Francisco, who are willing to stand up to these companies, or even just willing to do the homework that's included in trying to learn as much as we can about the evil that we're facing. And this is evil. This is inherent evil that we're facing. Anybody that goes to the extent of poisoning your community while you're sleeping, they're poisoning your community to the point where no, you can't grow your own food. That's outrageous. The soil's contaminated in certain areas. The water's contaminated in certain areas. Those are the two main ingredients you need to grow anything. So you can't sustain yourself. We're not going to give you any relief on your utilities through your electricity, because we're for some reason we're not allowing solar panels to be a part of the conversation. So you can't reduce any of the cost that the utility company brings you. You can't get any clean water. You can't feed yourself off the land. Even if you got farm animals, they would eat contaminated grass, turning your food completely contaminated. So the idea of the video that we just watched, they're turning Black communities into landfills. You do not see this type of problem in any other community but ours. So that is the reason why we have to advocate on the level that we're advocating for ourselves. This conversation does not include any elected official. This conversation is between us, the community. The elected officials are fine and dandy, but we as a community have to be completely aware of what is in front of us. You cannot mistake and leave that for someone else to figure out. You have to know what's going on in front of you. And playing aloof and being the fool is not the way to go. Being misinformed or disinformed, being an agent of misinformation is not the way. So for those of you going forward, a good measuring stick that you can use is if they have ever voted against your community, they will never vote for your community. Not in good faith. Not in good faith. If, like what Mr. Porter did, if you have someone that comes up with a grand idea that could easily be replicated, and there's parties that vote against it, even though the benefit far outweighs the cost, those people aren't for you. And I believe you guys just proved that, because I believe none of those people that voted against it, well, a couple of those people are out of office now. I just wish that it didn't. I wish that we could have like a redo of it. That would be great, like a little second chance at it. I believe that it would be great, a great investment for the city and for the communities. I'm not just talking about District 1, 2, and 3. I'm talking about the underserved. We got some comments, guys. Let's see here. One city councilman said we don't have enough wind for solar panels. Yes, he did say that. He said, oh no, he said, enough. One council person said that. Huh? You don't need wind for solar panels. That's crazy.
Right.
But the former head of utilities, Michael Marcotte, told me and Miss Agnes one time that we live in a part of Louisiana where having solar panels wouldn't benefit us because the sun doesn't shine enough to make usable solar power, and that was a lie. But again, you know, had we not been educated on the matter, we wouldn't have known the difference and probably would have just believed him. But Mr. Porter has solar panels.
Yes.
I think it's a grand idea.
Yeah. And the VA has solar panels. A lot of your signs along the highway, they don't have electricity running to them. They have solar panels.
So that being said, obviously they work. They obviously work. I do have one of a few couple last videos here. This particular piece is very short.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger, that hurts your backfire, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger nigger, you know. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
And that's exactly the code that's being used now. Whenever they're talking about cutting taxes and cutting back on, once you cut taxes, you're reducing the revenue coming into governments. So now the government has less money to work with. So what gets cut out of that less money? And the things that we've seen getting cut is education, healthcare, and anything that lends itself to protection, whether it's protection from climate events, protection from crime, protection from whatever. So in education, what it comes down to is less money going into the school systems. So the quality of education drops. And if you have more money, then you can afford to send your kid to a private education. So your kid continues to get a high quality learning. Okay. Now, if it's healthcare, that means less money going into healthcare. So less services for the people who cannot afford to pay for it. Now, if you are wealthy, you can pay for your own health care. And so once again, you thrive and you do better, you prosper because you're healthier. And then if there's less money to go around for changing out water lines that have brown water, repairing sewers that have collapsed, cleaning out trenches and canals so you get better drainage and flood protection. Well, if it's less money that goes to that, so your areas get flooded. But now the people who are wealthy, they're able to buy in a different area that's higher elevation, that has these infrastructures, so they're not affected. So that code now, instead of using racial slurs, we're going to do this to the blacks, we're going to do this to the blacks. Now it has shifted to, if we cut taxes, that means we're cutting services. And who does that affect mostly? It affects the blacks. If we cut education, it affects the blacks. They rely on public education. If we cut healthcare, that affects blacks. They rely on healthcare. If we cut services to communities, that affects black communities. They rely on this. So now the code for the conservatives is we're still very race oriented. We're going to do things to the people of color, but we're not coming out and saying that in very obvious terms. This is how we're saying it. So when we say that, you conservative voters know what we mean. You know who we're going after. And so their codes directly affect us, and their folks understand what that code means. They have deciphered their codes. And Atwater, this was back in the 60s, and this is still being used today in 2025.
And that is partially the reason why I wanted to present that particular piece to the conversation. So a little bit more housekeeping before we go. First off, I want to thank our guest. Thank you, Mr. Porter, and thank you, Ms. Lita, for really adding to the conversation. I appreciate you. I want to thank also the people in the comment section for adding also to the conversation. Brother Tyrell says, well, no one here is a solar scientist. This is true. This is true. So some housekeeping. First off, this is dedicated to our communities. Again, this is a community operation. The things that I will be reporting on and bringing to you is things that directly affect our community. We are focused on decoding and unmasking some of the obstacles that we may not have seen before or ones that we can't see. We are all about unmasking and decoding the things that are happening in front of us. What may appear to be a very somber city council meeting could have actually been a very nervous energy city council meeting, where those parties that are usually so apt to run their mouth in a way that is kind of running down certain black citizens or people, restricting people's freedom to speak about their political situation, or just their general situation that applies to your local council or your local city administration. We're seeing that there is a small certain amount of fear. There's a key element of fear that that lingers. It's a very silent, solid fear that lingers over that administration now, because as you guys could see today, if you watched the city council meeting, the mayor didn't have to jump in and defend the city council as he's so eloquently said in the past. So apparently there was never a need for the mayor to jump in and defend the city council away from the people, because the only thing that changed on the city council is Lee Rubin's gone and Reddix Washington is gone. So if anything, that would indicate that the people were upset with the actions of Rubin and Washington if they were a total group different acting today. Apparently there was nobody throwing fits. There was no chairs being thrown. There was no disparaging remarks being lobbied at one another. There was no gavel banging where people were told to shut up and sit down. Now those days seem to be over, and that particular environment, that climate, could cause a little discomfort in this administration because that's what they relied on. That was their entry point into the conversation that did not include them. And now that that is not the case, we are going to see a very different outcome from city council meetings going forward. That being said, guys, I want to say I really truly enjoyed this, and I do look forward to the next episode. It will be sooner than later. I will reserve every other Tuesday to debrief you guys on city council business. We'll call it Town Business Tuesdays. Other than that, we will cover a variety of topics, kind of like this one.
In 1912, African-American medical student Louis Tompkins Wright had his first day of anatomy class at Harvard. When he walked into the classroom, a strategically placed black male cadaver swung in the front room by ice tongues inserted in its ear. A survey conducted by the American Association of Physical Anthropologists in 1933 by Dr. W. Cobb revealed that Southern medical schools still used only black cadavers for teaching anatomy. And by 1967, 47 of the 87 schools received less than half of their bodies through volunteers and families who donated and got them from what they would call entrepreneurs. And by the 1980s, 29 students allowed for coroners or their representatives to collect or harvest tissue and organs for research or transplant purposes via various presumed consent statutes. Because of this, black body parts were more likely to be appropriated via presumed consent. And when presumed consent was enacted, black and Latino communities faced an increase in homicide rates. And since the 1980s, black people are 6 to 8 times more likely to be murdered than whites. And by 1997, the LA Coroner's Office sold more than 500 corneas per year to the Doherty Eye and Tissue Transplant Bank. 80% of those corneas belong to black and Latino people. Between 1999 and 2000, half the bodies that were donated to New York State were not by family, but by the Coroner's Office. We have made some progress here in the 21st century because back in the 19th century, the Medical College of Georgia would just, callously throw black bodies that were dissected underneath their school in their basement. But now, after bodies have been dissected and have been used for medical purposes, many medical schools actually provide a burial or memorial service. Families attend and students offer prayers, poems, and thanks and remembrance.
All right. What I would like to do is begin every show like I ended and end it just like I began it. So together, we're going to relax. We're going to breathe deep. You're going to close your eyes and count to 10 and enjoy